So what are some of the best cameras for travel vlogging? In today's video, I kind of want to give you a deep dive into travel vlogging, but I really want to specifically focus on the cameras and features that I think you should consider when choosing to purchase your next camera. Now, I'm also going to give you my top 3 favorite travel vlogging cameras and why I think they're so good, but also give you a comparison and sort of a pros and cons of each one and the target audience. Let's dive in. So let's start off by talking about what you need to know about travel vlogging cameras. So basically, like, what's the difference between a travel vlogging camera and a regular camera, say a DSLR or a mirrorless camera? There's not necessarily one rule that fits all. I mean, you can absolutely use a mirrorless camera if you wanted to for your travel vlogs, or even a cinema camera if you wanted to. It's really going to be this like delicate balance between the features that you're most interested in, that you feel are the most important, versus the size and the weight. So let's talk about that a little bit more. I think one of the most important factors to consider is the image quality. Why is the image quality so important? For example, you may want to buy a camera that can shoot in at least 4K. Well, why would you need that? Because 4K gives you a lot of flexibility in post to crop in and zoom in on the image to give a different perspective of whatever it is that you're capturing, right? So your audience can see things slightly different. Now, it may not necessarily just be because you want to crop in and zoom and show detail, but it may be to just push the story along, right? To change the pace of things and crop in a little bit and give a different angle or perspective, make it look like it was shot on multiple cameras, but not necessarily, right? To keep engagement going. I think the next important thing for most vloggers is going to be autofocus. You are run and gun, you are spur of the moment, you are capturing things on the fly sometimes, and maybe even capturing moments and other people around you. You may not have necessarily the time to really consider autofocus, right? So in a nutshell, you want your camera to be reliable and dependable. Having a camera that has great autofocus gives you a little bit more peace of mind, and it's one less thing to worry about, so you can focus on your travel vlog and deliver content to your viewers so they're engaged and happy. Alongside autofocus, I think most people are going to want good stabilization. There are different types of stabilizations in cameras. You have digital stabilization that happens processed in the camera. Basically what's going on is your camera is actually cropping in and then trying to get the jitter out by doing some digital stabilization. Now, there's also mechanical stabilization, which is having your camera on a physical gimbal, a gimbal that is stabilizing your tilt and roll axis, right? And it's giving you a mechanical stabilized image. It's not cropping in, it's not degrading the quality of the image in any way. It's literally using a mechanical gimbal to stabilize it. And then there's in-body stabilization. In-body stabilization is often found on mirrorless cameras nowadays, where the sensor itself has a little bit of wiggle room, not a lot, but a little bit. And in the body, the stabilization happens within the sensor, right? The sensor is going to move around a little bit and try to stabilize itself. Now, you can imagine there's not a lot of movement in there, so you're not going to have amazing stabilized results, but paired with a lens that has stabilization, you can actually get some pretty good results. The third thing that I think is going to be really important for vloggers is low light performance. Again, this goes back to just having something dependable that is almost auto-regulating itself and automizing the image for you as much as possible. Low light performance is important because you're not always, especially in travel vlogging, going to have the most ideal lighting situation. Now, you should always shoot for the best possible lighting situation that you can get, but understandably, you're not always going to have that. Sometimes For your travel vlogs, you might be shooting at night. So having low light performance is going to be very important to you if that's the case, because you want to be able to capture those moments. And if you don't have extra lights and things or a crew or whatever to help you light the image properly, then you have to rely on your camera's low light performance. Also equally as important is audio. Nowadays, a lot of these travel vlog cameras are coming in with better built-in microphones. But look, I'm gonna be straight with you guys. Built-in microphones never sound as good as external microphones. So having a camera that has the ability to accept external microphone capabilities is super important, at least to me. You gotta focus on good audio. If no one can hear you, if no one can understand what you're saying, they're going to click away. And actually, studies have shown over and over and over again, people are more forgiving when it comes to the image quality. If it's not perfect, they don't necessarily click away right away, but they're not so forgiving with audio. If audio is blown out and really loud and really windy and it can't understand what the person's saying, or really low, right? People will click away. Travel vlogging cameras nowadays will connect via Bluetooth, wirelessly, automatically. You turn on the camera connects to the mic, you are ready to go, and that's extremely valuable. A good example is going to be the DJI Pocket 3. The next thing I would consider is frame rates. Frame rates alongside with the image resolution, 4K, is extremely important because it allows you to control the pace of your story or to really highlight some cool things. Frame rates translates to slowing down the image in post, slow motion. And that may be really important to you if you're vlogging about cars, for example, or you are going to be vlogging regarding sports. You're going and you're gonna vlog your sports activities or go to games or whatever. It doesn't necessarily matter what your travel vlogs are about, but you get my point. Having the ability to slow down the frame rates in post is gonna give you flexibility. That changes the engagement with the audience, right? There's interesting things happening. It's not always at a certain pace. The pace changes, and that's incredibly valuable. So what are the top 3 vlogging cameras that I think are worth buying or at least looking at in today's market, 2025? Number 1 on my list, which I personally own, absolutely love, is the DJI Pocket 3, the DJI Osmos Pocket 3. This camera is really hot right now. Everybody wants the DJI Pocket 3. But what are its strengths and weaknesses? Well, number 1, image quality is fantastic. It shoots in 4K. You can shoot in super slow motion, 120 frames per second if you wanted to, and it has a mechanical gimbal. I also love the wireless lavalier mic capabilities. You get great sound with the DJI Pocket 3. You're not sacrificing sound. Now, if you do need to use the built-in microphones, it has 3, I believe, so you can actually get like stereo sound if you wanted to, but it also has a microphone in the front and back, and you can toggle them and all that stuff. The built-in microphones are great. They're fine. If you're in a pinch and that's all you have, you can definitely work with it, but the wireless mics are so much more better. So what are some of the weaknesses to the DJI Pocket 3? Well, it's supposed to be pocket sized, and it is. It may be a little too big to fit in your pocket for some. Also, the handle without the extension grip is really small if you have big hands like me. So using the extension grip is a must. And then battery life is okay, but you don't have interchangeable batteries. It's not like you can charge a bunch of batteries and take them with you and swap them out. You literally charge the device and then you can purchase or get in the creator combo the larger extension, handle extension, which acts as a battery pack. And then you can buy more of those if you wanted to, which are kind of expensive. Also, it's built really, really well. It is, but it kind of feels flimsy, right? Like, I think if you were to drop it, you would damage it. I don't think it would survive. It's a little bit delicate, right? So consider what you're gonna be filming. If you're gonna be doing a lot of high intensity stuff, action stuff, may not be the best camera for you. And then there was some quality control issues with the screen. Some people had the screen like popping out, breaking. I never had that issue. I think it was an early thing with the first batch, and it seems to be okay now. But image quality really is fantastic. It shoots very natural images. I love it. I use it as my family camera. I call it my companion camera. I can take it anywhere with me. It's small enough. I just grab it, take it, and shoot everything, and anything. And I use it for family vacations and capturing the moments with my kids and all that stuff. Professionally, I use it as my behind the scenes camera when we're doing paid shoots and I'm shooting these YouTube videos for you and explaining techniques. So the target audience for the DJI Pocket 3 is definitely people that want to get a little bit more of a cinematic image, right? That really care about having a mechanical gimbal. Image quality is number one to them. They want a system that pairs beautifully, the microphone system with the camera, and they want something they can just pick up and go and do a little bit more of travel vlogging and not necessarily action vlogging, sports. And you're not going to put this thing on like your skis or your car or motorcycle and, you know, bang it around and things like that. So I think that's the target audience. A little bit more of this. Camera number 2 for me is the Insta360 system. The X4, I think, is the latest thing. I had the X3. I bought the X3. Full disclosure, I did return it. When I bought the DJI Pocket 3, I thought the DJI Pocket 3 had a much more better image, and I loved the image quality coming out of that versus the X3. But the Insta360 system has some huge strengths. The number one strength is the 360 ecosystem. So the Insta360 X4, for example, let's choose the latest one, has 2 cameras on each side. What happens is the camera is shooting simultaneously with both cameras, and in post you can actually stitch it and get a whole 360 image. So that's a big strength because you can just focus on what you're doing and not necessarily focus on the camera or what you're shooting. A lot of folks will just get a selfie stick, and Insta360 sells an invisible selfie stick where you can't even see it in the image, and if you place it, you know, in a unique spot, no one can tell that there's a selfie stick. So people will buy an Insta360, literally just hold it or place it somewhere and just let it run, capture whatever it is that's capturing, capture the moment, and then in post, we'll figure out what the story is later, right? They'll reframe it and turn around and do all these cool things, and ta-da, you have a story now, and you have your travel vlog. So why did I return it? What's the weaknesses here? Well, image quality wasn't that great. In particular, if you didn't have good lighting, the image quality degraded really quickly. With the X3, anytime there's a low light scenario, it just didn't look good. It looked worse than a cell phone. Even in direct sunlight, 12 o'clock noon and so forth like that, it had this digital fake image, cell phone image. And likewise, sometimes when the cameras would stitch, they weren't perfect. So when you're reframing and things like that, you can tell. Like there's little holes in the stitching where it didn't make sense or it overlapped and didn't look right. And then initially when I got it, I did like it. I liked it a lot initially, and I saw the value in having that 360 image. But then you have a separate software that you have to use to, you know, convert that image and then reframe it and do things like that. And then you export it. And I use Final Cut Pro, which didn't support it. So you'd export it, and then if you didn't like it or it didn't make sense, you'd have to go back into the other software, redo it, reframe it, key it, all that stuff, and then bring it back. And it got kind of old after a while, just doing that over and over again. So I just figured it was worth it up front to focus on the story and shooting the scenes that I wanted than to just stick something up in the air or hold it and then figure it out later. There was no wireless system that you can connect to, right? It didn't automatically pair with a wireless lav mic or anything like that. You could buy an adapter, right? You could buy a 3.5 millimeter audio jack adapter that you plug into the camera and then plug in your favorite mic and go from there. And I highly recommend that, but it wasn't automated. Lastly, the build quality was okay. I think because you didn't have a mechanical gimbal, it wasn't as delicate as, let's say, the Pocket 3, but it wasn't great either. Like the lenses scratched easily. And as soon as you scratched them, they were noticeable in the image, right? Because it's stitching everything into 360. So the image is very fragile, right? You could use it in action scenarios and things like that. But yeah, I don't know, like it wasn't necessarily an action camera, but it wasn't necessarily a vlogging camera. I mean, it was sort of in the middle. Now, with that being said, who's the target audience? There's actually a huge following for the Insta360 cameras, and there's some folks out there that really get some creative shots and really drive a story. I mean, they're like taking the camera and they're jumping and on walls and they're flipping it upside down or going through car windows, and they're getting this really cool story and reframing it. And it really does look special. I mean, it's something that you can only do with the Insta360 camera, or you can only do quickly with an Insta360 camera. So it's absolutely a unique camera. I think the target audience is folks that want to get really creative, like those folks, and do some crazy things with it. It's waterproof and all that stuff. The Pocket 3 isn't, so you can take it underwater and do some really cool stuff. But it's really focused on folks that just want to shoot. They don't just want to hit record. They don't want to necessarily focus on, what they're shooting or how they're shooting it, and just live in the moment, capture the moment. The camera's an afterthought, and then later on in post, frame it any way that you want and figure out what the story is. Camera number 3 is an action camera. I think action cameras have came a long way. And again, my list is really considering size versus features, right? So for me, you get a lot that's jam-packed in an action camera. My personal favorites are the DJI Action cameras. I know DJI's on the list again. I'm not sponsored by them. DJI Action 5 Pro is the latest from DJI that is an action camera that rivals GoPro. And I think DJI is kind of considered like the new age of action cameras, and GoPro is still kind of like old school. I think you get a lot for your money with DJI. Now, I've heard that the Action 5 Pro isn't that much of an upgrade compared to the Action 4, so that's something to consider. The Action 4 is pretty cheap and goes on sale periodically. But what are the strengths of an action camera? Why did they make the list? Well, action cameras are literally designed to be worn. You can wear them anywhere, your helmet, your baseball cap, your shoulder, your backpack, whatever. They are rugged. You can use them for almost anything. They're literally an action camera. So you can ski with them, go underwater with them, mount them on your car, use them as a first person view. That's a very cool and unique way to do it. But, mount them so you're getting a point of view of whatever it is that you're doing. Let's say you mount them on a football player's helmet, and now you're seeing everything that the football player is seeing. It really gives great perspectives, and they have good image qualities. They've came a long way. Now, the early ones had this fake digital image. Nowadays, I think they're improving. They're getting larger sensors like the DJI Action 5 Pro, and they're balancing now that image quality versus the action camera look. I forgot to mention, but with the Insta360 X4, it also had pretty good stabilization, but the digital stabilization on action cameras is ridiculous. They've came a long way. What are some of the weaknesses? Well, I kind of mentioned them, but they're action cameras. Sometimes you can tell that you're using an action camera and you get this like action camera kind of look, which can be kind of digital and fake. They're getting better though. You don't get a lot of perspective, right? It's kind of this wide image and that's it. And usually it's like a point of view image and that's it, right? Like you can mount it in different ways and get like, camera A, camera B. You've actually seen action cameras used a lot in cars, right? Capturing two people talking in a car and they look fine. I bet you've probably watched the show where you had no clue that they're using a GoPro or whatever to capture the dialogue inside a car. So they can be versatile, like they can be used in different ways, but they're meant to be used as action cameras. So that's kind of a weakness, right? They're very small, pocket size, which is a plus, but also action cameras now do automatically pair through Bluetooth with microphones. So that's a huge plus now. So you can use them similar with the Pocket 3. You can connect, at least with the DJI, with an external microphone and get great audio quality. Target audience is people that are looking to do a lot of action sequences. They want something really rugged. They want to be able to, go in the water. It needs to be waterproof. They don't necessarily care about getting different image perspectives. They're looking for more of a point of view or first person view storyline, right? And they just want something that just works. You turn it on, you press a button, and it's capturing everything. And if you want to wear a camera and not necessarily hold a selfie stick, an action camera's for you. So those are kind of my top 3. A fourth one to consider if you are a mirrorless camera shooter. Sony now offers the A7C, right? Or I think that, C Mark II. And that's like a miniature version of the A7 IV, right? It's very, very small, and it does a lot of things really, really well. You have interchangeable lenses that you can get really cinematic. You can use it for vlogging. It's a little pricey and may not be worth it to you, maybe too heavy and so forth, but you're getting a lot of image quality out of that thing. And you're using a mirrorless camera, which comes with all of the great things that mirrorless cameras can do, but you may not be happy with the stabilization, so you might want to buy a gimbal and so forth. That's a bigger investment, but that's more of a traditional interchangeable lens camera. I thought I would mention it just to throw it out there as a fourth option. So when choosing the right camera for you, here's a couple things that I would consider, because I just gave you 4 technically different cameras that are very different, right? So consider your budget, right? What is your budget? And more importantly, consider if the camera was lost, stolen, or damaged, can you live with that? That's a big thing. Consider your filming style. Are you looking for a cinematic story that you're driving and, you're going to be mounting it on different things and capturing yourself in a third? Are you trying to look like you have a crew with you, or is it going to be a little bit more straightforward point of view? Also, consider what you're filming. Is it going to be sports? Is it going to be a lot of action stuff? Is it going to be just you walking around the city and you don't want to have to worry about the shot sequence and you're going to reframe it later? Or are you looking to do a little bit more of an interview style, right? Documentary travel vlog, things like that. Those are all things that you need to, the style of your content is going to matter. And then finally, the destinations. You're going to be in cold environments, humid environments. Are you going to be in rainy environments? Is it going to be bright and sunny all the time? Or are you going to need low light performance? Those are all things that you need to consider. A lot of people make the mistake of just buying a camera and not even using it to its full potential. For example, if you're going to buy the X4, the Insta360 line, and you're literally just going to vlog and hold it in front of your face, did you really need that camera? I mean, the camera's capable of so much more and reframing and doing all this stuff. So tips for shooting stunning travel vlogging footage. As much as possible, use natural light to your advantage. I know manufacturers will just gloat about their low light performance, but every single camera out there, the Sony A7 III, my cinema cameras, lighting is very important, and using natural lighting for travel vlogs is only going to be to your advantage. Get creative with the camera. Move your angles. Get some movement shots. Get some stationary shots. Get some dynamic shots. Mix in some slow motion. All those things, right? Get creative. Drive the story and make it impactful. And keep the engagement up with your viewers. Create compelling narratives with your footage, right? You want to get different perspectives. You want the viewers to feel like they're there with you. So it's very important to plan, even if you're travel vlogging, plan the day out and figure out what you want to shoot to push the narrative, right? Even if you have the Insta360 X4, you can't just stick it on to your backpack and walk around all day and think you're going to have a very compelling narrative, right? Some planning ahead of time is always going to be a good thing. You can buy the best camera in the world, but if you don't know what you're going to be shooting that day and you're just kind of just shooting anything, you're not going to have the best story. So that's it for me. I know this was a really long video, but I do hope that it was at the very least a good starting point, and that it was jam-packed with information to at least help you decide on the important things to consider when buying your next travel vlogging camera. If you did find this video helpful or entertaining, I do ask that you please consider subscribing and joining our channel membership so we can continue making videos like this one. Catch you guys on the next video. Take care.